Hello again, college football fans. It is Tuesday, October 31st, 2023. Happy Halloween. Happy birthday, Nick Saban. It's LSU week. The bye week is over. It's time to make this preview and prediction. I've been chomping at the bit for a couple of weeks, part nervous, part excited, because this is the big one. Most years since Nick Saban has been at Alabama, this is the game that pretty much determines who the SEC West representative is going to be in Atlanta to play for that SEC championship game the first Saturday of December. There's some college football playoff implications a little bit in this game, too. Alabama's still in the discussion, and I think if LSU wins out and beats Georgia, if they're still undefeated in the SEC championship game, I think that a serious discussion will be had, because plenty of more dominoes are going to fall around the country. You just know that's going to be the case. So this is a huge game, as big as it gets. I know a 3 weeks ago we were talking about the Texas A&M game. Maybe you would look back on that one as being the SEC Western Division championship game. I don't think many people think that that's the case anymore. Texas A&M is not mathematically out of it yet, I don't think, but a lot of chaos would have to ensue in the SEC in order for them to get back in the discussion of getting a trip to Atlanta. A couple weeks ago, I was convinced that Alabama was going to have a hard time in this game, and by hard time I mean more like what we saw in the Texas game, losing by a couple of scores, but the improvement in the offensive line, the improvement that we've seen from the running game, the second half that we had against Tennessee with no mistakes, virtually no mistakes, only one. Great pass protection, great run blocking, gave me a little bit of hope that we'll be able to compete in this game, and it won't just be Jaden Daniels running away with it with that incredible offense that they have at LSU. So that just gets us right into the game, which, this has been well publicized. Everybody, even if you're a casual fan at this point, knows that this game, the strong suits for both teams are LSU's offense and Alabama's defense. The bad news for Bama fans is we just live in an offensive world right now as far as the rules go, as far as the way players train throughout their high school and middle school careers for those offensive positions. Offense is just king right now. And, 20, 30 years ago, I would have said, or I think most people would have said, that a good offense versus a good defense, defense is going to get a little bit of an advantage. Kind of like in baseball with, good pitching is going to beat good hitting most of the time. I think it's flipped in college football now. I think that your good offenses have a better chance of making your good defenses look bad than the other way around. So we'll have to keep that in mind going into this one, and that's one reason why I was so pessimistic, because I think Alabama's best chance to slow down Jaden Daniels and the LSU offense is by keeping the ball on offense. And with our running game as anemic as it was there for a while early in the season, especially against Texas A&M, then the chances in my mind of Alabama being able to keep up in this game were pretty low. But I'm feeling a little bit better about it now. I'll give a prediction of what I think is going to happen in the game and a final score by the end of this video. But first I'm going to talk some more about what these teams do well, what they don't do well. The LSU defense has gotten really bad press and gotten some really bad opinions made of them by fans throughout the Southeastern Conference, and a lot of it is warranted. Now, granted, the word on the street is that they have improved. I think that this game will determine whether or not they have really made any significant improvements, because you can't play Auburn and Army and say that you've improved offensively because of the offensive natures of both of those teams. And on the other side, we've talked about Alabama's improvement on the offensive line and in the wide receiver core. Really, the entire offense, Milroe has improved. The entire offense has shown improvement. But this game will determine whether or not they've improved to a level that we need them to have to go on and achieve the goals that Alabama sets for itself every year since Saban's been at the helm. I do believe Alabama's got a little bit of a special teams edge in this game. I think that Will Reichert and James Burnip are a better pair of kickers than they have over there in Baton Rouge. And LSU's also had a lot of trouble this year fielding punts, muffing punts and that sort of thing. So Alabama hasn't really had that kind of a problem this year. But McKinstry has been a little bit shy about actually catching those punts. But in a big game, a big close game like this, I would rather him let them go than try to make a circus catch on a punt and muffing it and getting a turnover, because turnovers are going to be huge in this game. Because if Alabama's got any chance in this, I think it's going to be... Now, I think if we get into sort of a genuine shootout type situation and the scores get up into the 40s or 50s, then Alabama's going to have a hard time keeping up in that sort of scenario. But I think in order for Alabama to stay with LSU in this game, it's going to have to be at least a little bit of a shootout at times. So I believe that things like your special teams will come into play in a game like this. LSU's got a lot of defensive injuries. Now, as bad of an opinion as people have about their defense, and when you look at the numbers, they are near the bottom of the SEC in defensive stats. I think in running defense, I think Vanderbilt is the only team that's worse. Vanderbilt's pretty much the only team that's got worse numbers than LSU across the board defensively. So they were going to need all hands on deck, and that's not going to be the case. I watched Brian Kelly's press conference yesterday, and they're going to be without 3, I believe, cornerbacks that are probably the top 3 on the depth chart for them, or at least 3 that are in that top part of their depth chart. And they're losing Wingo, which is their big defensive tackle kind of guy, their big defensive lineman, interior of that line, and that is going to be a problem, because I think considering Alabama's struggles that they've had on the offensive line and getting big running lanes for those backs, LSU was going to need to take advantage of that, and not having Wingo is going to be a problem for them to be able to take advantage of that. So that's the big one for me. And Alabama's healthy. Like I said, I haven't heard about any new injuries that took place during the Tennessee game or during the off week, and hopefully that won't occur in practice this week leading up to the game. Best case scenarios for both teams, I think, is probably I think LSU has a better chance of getting a blowout in this game, 21 points or more. But I think that that's, that would be a really, really bad day for Alabama in order for that to happen. But the best case for Alabama would be probably a 10 or 14 point victory in this one. Maybe they could get to 21 if the defense just really, really plays out of its mind, and as well as the offense for that matter. Now, what we were talking about earlier about how offenses have an advantage in this game, I think that because Alabama's defense is so good, and Alabama's defense has an argument for being the best one in the country. I know their numbers aren't there, but I mean, you're talking about Big Ten teams that really don't have to deal with the same kind of offensive opposition that we do in the SEC. And then you add Texas onto that list as well for Alabama. So, but, this is going to be one of those games where we talked about all year that the defense has looked improved since the reign of terror of the Pete Golding era at defensive coordinator at Alabama. We've talked all year about how they just have that look that they haven't had for the last 5 seasons, and that's physicality, that's intensity. But this game will be the proving point. The proof is in the pudding, as they say, and this game is the pudding for Alabama's defense. If they can slow down Jaden Daniels and this incredible offense at LSU enough to allow our offense to win the game, or at least be in the game, then I think, we'll be able to say confidently going the rest of the way that we do have one of the best defenses in the country, and that we are back closer to our Alabama standard of defensive play than we've been in the last 5 or 6 seasons, however long it's been since Jeremy Pruitt left. I consider him basically an extension of the Kirby Smart defensive era under Nick Saban at Alabama. Historically in this game, I consider Jaden Daniels a legendary quarterback already. I mean, I think he's in the same conversation as Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel, Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence. I'll even put Hendon Hooker on that list. Now, not all the time, but I'd say half the time, at least, probably more than half the time, Alabama has lost during this great run under Nick Saban. The opposing team has had one of these legendary quarterbacks. But the good news for Alabama is that if we've had 2 shots against any of these guys, we have won at least one. Now, we only got 1 shot against Cam Newton, 1 shot against Trevor Lawrence. But everybody else, we played twice, and we at least got 1 win in that series. Tebow, Manziel, Watson, Burrow, and Hooker. So I always like to look at, historical precedents and standards for these sort of things. And that's at least good news for Alabama historically, because we've already played Jaden Daniels once, and he got the victory. So hopefully we'll be able to continue that trend this year. But the other guys that make this LSU monster offensive attack, obviously they've got a good O-line full of big, stout SEC monsters up there up front. And the skill guys, aside from Daniels, are Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Mason Taylor, and Logan Diggs at running back. And I think Diggs has made the biggest impact since that Florida State game that LSU, I guess that was the closest that their offense has come to struggling. They only were able to score 24 points in that game, and really struggled in the second half and the fourth quarter against Florida State's defense. Now, Alabama is probably the best defense that Alabama's definitely the best defense that they've played since that Florida State game. I don't know if I'm ready to say Alabama's defense is better or not. This game, obviously, like I said earlier, will go a long way in determining that. But Logan Diggs didn't play in that Florida State game, and he's really rounded this LSU offensive attack out into a genuine monster. So just going to go right into what I think is going to happen in this one. I do believe it's going to be another slow start for Alabama. They've just not been able to come out of the gate swinging real good anytime this year, and I don't expect them to this year. But I do expect the running game to be able to allow us to hang on to the ball a little bit in the first half, and I don't think we're going to be able to score much, but I do think we'll be able to hold on to the ball enough to keep Jaden off the field and allow our defense to get enough rest to make sure that he's not just killing us early. Because if we start off as slowly as we did in the Tennessee game, we could find ourselves in a 21-point hole pretty quickly against this offense, and I don't think that can happen in order for us to stay competitive in this football game. I'm looking at a 14-6 halftime score, maybe a couple of touchdowns for them and a couple of field goals for us. Now, I do believe that both offenses will get a little bit more of a rhythm in the second half, and that might be when the sort of mini shootout between Jalen Milroe and Jaden Daniels starts happening. And like I said, it can't get into a genuine shootout because Jaden Daniels is what Jalen Milroe hopes to be. A good running quarterback, great thrower, quick, good at that RPO game. And if we can get that RPO stuff in there, like we did in the second half against Tennessee, then I like our chances even better of being able to run the ball and hold on to the ball and get some rushing yards offensively, which is going to be key in this game. Especially, at least for parts of the game, Alabama's going to have to be able to sustain drives long enough to get the defense a blow and to just keep that dangerous offense off the field. I mean, I'm telling you, these offenses, in the best of years for Alabama's defenses, 2015, that was one of the greatest defenses that Saban has had, and Deshaun Watson torched them. And, the next year in 2016 as well. And at this point in the game, I think by the fourth quarter, I think they're going to trade some touchdowns. I think Alabama's going to claw its way back from that halftime deficit and sort of even it up. But I think LSU's going to keep keep getting their lead back. And then Alabama will have to answer to tie it up again. And, honestly, the key for me at this point is the fact that LSU is so short-handed and thin at defense. Because coming into this game, I just heard, or you just hear so much about how badly LSU's defense is played. Well, that's been the case a few times in recent years in this game. And then it comes around to the game, and then LSU winds up playing the best defensive game that they've played all year. I mean, we know they've got the athletes all over the field. They've got 4- and 5-star players all over the field, just like Alabama does. And, the thing that worried me the most would be that this would be the day that their defense figured it out. And then Jaden Daniels just buries us. But since they are so shorthanded on both the line and in the back end, and really the only strong spot they have would be Harold Perkins to this point, I'm thinking that that's the reason why I have Alabama still in this game at this point of the game, is because of the thinness at defense for LSU. And since I'm thinking that Alabama has really showed that they're the kind of team that can handle adversity. They can handle a halftime deficit. They can handle a deficit in the second half, and they've been able to find ways to win. And I think that at this point, why not, right? Why not be optimistic in a sort of toss-up game like this? It's a 3-point spread, which, for the home team, Alabama's favored by 3 points. That's a toss-up in Vegas, right? And I think it is going to be a toss-up game. And I think that the difference is going to be LSU's defense, their inability to take advantage of Alabama's offensive line, youth, and that sort of thing, and inability to run the ball the way that we like them to run it at Alabama. I think LSU's inability to take advantage of that is going to be the difference in keeping Alabama in this game. Now, Alabama winning this game, I think they're going to need some help from their special teams. They're going to need some kind of turnover, taking advantage of one of those muff punts. Obviously, Will Reichert is going to have to make every kick that is available to him. And right now, I've got him having already made 2 kicks in the first half. And I feel like what will allow Alabama to change the script where LSU is getting the go-ahead touchdown, they'll tie it up, and then we'll get some help from the defense or the special teams somehow, and that will allow Alabama to go ahead in the fourth quarter. But you're not going to be able to keep Jaden and that offense down, so they will come back. And I'm looking at late in the game, 35-35 score, and Jaden will get that 35th point, that last touchdown, late in the game. And then I think that maybe with about a minute, probably less than 2 minutes left in the game, Alabama will get that last shot. And Milroe has shown that he's a clutch quarterback, and this is a clutch team that finds ways to win. And I think he's going to make a couple of big-time throws there in the last minute of this ball game to get us into field goal range at the end of regulation, and we're going to get a walk-off field goal by Will Reichert to make this final score Alabama 38, LSU 35. And obviously, this is an optimism pick for me, because I do believe it's a complete toss-up game, and it could easily go the other way around, and we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. But right now, I've got Alabama winning 38-35, and let's hope it's just as great a game as we want it to be. As a matter of fact, I would just love it to be an Alabama route, but I just don't see that happening. So we'll be talking about this one as soon as it's over. I'll try to get a video out Sunday reviewing all of the goings-on in Week 10 of college football. Normally I do a little bit of a preview of other games, but as big as this one is, I just wanted to focus on the task at hand. And roll Tide. Thanks for watching.